Okay, so now I'm going to do the next sheet that we have. I just talked about what limits are. That sheet can be found on Canvas. We also have this sheet on Canvas. It's Notes and Practice number 1. We have another one, Notes and Practice number 2. And the intent is that I'm going to work a few of these with you, and you can work the rest as practice. So on this particular worksheet, I'm going to work 1, 2, 5, and 8, and then you can do the rest for practice. And then I'll do another video for practice 2. Okay, so this is asking me, what is f of 2? Well, what that means is when x equals 2, what does y equal? So if I go over here to where x is 2, the y value is right here where the solid circle is, so it's going to be -3. All right, then we're going to do, on this next part, what is the limit as x is approaching 2 from the left? I know it's from the left because of that negative symbol to the right of the 2. So from the left, as I'm approaching 2, my y value is approaching +2. And then I'm going to check it. What is the limit as x is approaching 2 from the right? So if I follow my graph as x is approaching 2 from the right, my y value is approaching -1. These are both called one-sided limits, and they are approaching different values. The one from the left is going to 2, the one from the right is doing -1. So when I ask you what is the limit as x is approaching 2 for that function, we're going to say does not exist because they're approaching different numbers from the left and the right. And this would be one of those that is a jump discontinuity, since it literally jumps. As you go from the left, you have to jump to get to the other part. All right. Okay, on number 2, this is asking me what is f of 3. So f of 3, this is where x is 3. The y value is where this solid circle is, and that y value is 2. So that's the answer to that. Then it's asking me what is the limit as x is approaching 3 from the left. So as x is approaching 3 from the left, my y value is approaching -4. Then we're going to look and see what is the graph approaching as we come from the right towards x is 3. Well, we're still approaching that same -4. So we're going to put -4 there. So that means since both of these one-sided limits are the same, the limit as x is approaching 3 of f of x is just -4. I do want to make it clear that a lot of times, like in this picture right here, we have, as we're coming from the left and as we're coming towards the right, we're reaching a hole right here. But that doesn't really matter for a limit. That tells us what the graph is doing. So not always will the limit and the value at that same x value be the same. Okay, on this next one, we want to know what is f of -2. So f of -2, we actually have a dot right here. So my answer is going to be 1. That's what the y value is when x is -2. Okay, this is now saying what happens when we're approaching -2 from the left. So as I come to -2 from the left, I'm going to -infinity. Then what happens when I approach -2 from the right? Well, again, I'm approaching -infinity. Because both of these one-sided limits are the same, the graph, the limit as x is approaching -2 is going to be -infinity. This, by the way, would be called an infinite discontinuity. Technically, we could say it does not exist, but to let the reader know what the graph is doing as x is approaching -2, we're going to say it's going to -infinity. Okay, so we're going to do number 8 now. On number 8, this is another example of a jump discontinuity, because as you're doing the graph, you have to jump to get up to the next part. We, though, aren't really going to look right here where the jump discontinuity is. We're looking for where x is -1 on each of these. So we're looking right here where x is a -1, and there's not a discontinuity there. So what is f of -1? Well, that's right here at 2. So we're going to say 2 there. Then we're going to see what is the limit as x is approaching -1 from the left. Well, it's approaching 2. What happens to the graph? So we say what is the limit as x is approaching -1 from the right? Well, it's also approaching 2. So because both of these one-sided limits are the same, the limit as x is approaching -1 is also 2. And this is one of those situations where all of them were the same, and it's because there was no discontinuity whatsoever there. Okay, I've jumped to the other worksheet. Now I've got the worksheet number 2, and I'm going to start with number 1. So in number 1, this is asking me on part A, what is the limit as x is approaching 3 from the left? Well, as we go from the left and we approach 3, my y value is approaching this -1 right here. So my answer for this one would be -1. Then we're asked what happens, or what is the limit as x is approaching 3 from the right? Well, my y value is approaching right here, which is 3. So what is the limit as x is approaching 3 in general? Well, we would say does not exist because my one-sided limits here and here were not the same. All right, then it's asking me what is f of 3? So when x is 3, my y value is this solid circle right here at 1. Okay, then this is something a little different that we haven't talked about. I'm going to erase all of this. This is asking what's happening as x is approaching -infinity. So as x is going to -infinity, the y values are staying right here at that -1. So we would say -1. And then as x is approaching positive infinity, the y values are staying the same, going this direction. And so I would say that the y values are approaching 3 as x is approaching positive infinity. Okay, going to number 2. Now we're going to do as x is approaching this 2. So as x is approaching 2 from the left, the y value is approaching a positive 2. As x is approaching 2 from the right, the y value is approaching 0. So since these two one-sided limits are different, as x is approaching 2 in general, it's going to be does not exist since they're going different ways on from the left and from the right. F of 2 is going to be where the solid circle is. This right here is supposed to be an open circle. Sorry about that. It didn't really show up like it was supposed to. That's supposed to be an open circle. So when I ask you what is f of 2, we're going to say 2 because that's where the solid circle is. All right, erasing all of this, I'm going to see what happens when x is approaching -infinity. So as x is going to -infinity, we're kind of approaching an asymptote right here, which is where y is equal to 0. The y's are not going to go below that. It's approaching like an asymptote. When x is going to positive infinity, so as x is going this way, it looks like my y values are approaching 2. They're leveling off right there. As you're going this way, they're leveling off if that y equals 2. So that would be your answer there. Okay, let's go ahead and do number 3. This is kind of hard to see, but as x is approaching 4 from the left, so as we're going this way, the y value is approaching 1. As x is approaching 4 from the right, again, the y value is approaching 1. Because both of these one-sided limits are the same, the limit as x is approaching 4 is also going to be 1. And in this case, when it asks you what is g of 4, well, that's actually right there on that graph. It's going to be at 1. So all of those are the same this time. Then we're going to see what does it look like our graph is doing as x is approaching -infinity. So as x is going to the left, well, this is showing me it looks like it continues going down forever. So I'm going to say -infinity. And then as x is going to go from the to positive infinity, so as x is going to the right this way, it looks like the y values are going to continue on up and go to positive infinity. Okay, now I'm going to do number 5. This is asking as what's happening, what's the limit as x is approaching -2 from the left, and it's going, the y values are going to 0. What is the limit as x is approaching -2 from the right? Well, again, the y values are approaching 0. So in general, what is the limit as x is approaching -2? Well, because both of these were the same, it's going to be 0 here as well. F of -2, though, is going to be a little different because that's an open circle. We're going to go to where there's a closed circle. So F of -2 will be 3. All right, now then we're going to look to see what happens. Okay, now we're going to look to see what happens as x is going to -infinity. It looks like my y's are going up here to infinity. And then what happens as x is going to positive infinity? It looks like my y's are going to go to positive infinity. Okay, so there's that one. Okay, now we're going to do number 7 on practice 2. We're asked to see what is happening as x is approaching -2 from the left. Well, it looks like it's going to -infinity. What's happening as the graph is approaching -2 from the right? Well, it's going to positive infinity. These are going to different infinities. So when I answer the next question, I'm going to say does not exist. And that's my only option. And that's because they're going to different infinities. One's going to negative and one's going to positive. All right, what is the function evaluated at -2? Well, I'm going to say does not exist. It doesn't. It's an asymptote there. It won't ever equal anything there. All right, next we're going to see what happens when x is going to -infinity. Well, it's leveling out and it's approaching that horizontal asymptote. The y's are, and that horizontal asymptote is at 2. And then what is happening is x is approaching positive infinity. So as we go this way, it's leveling out and it's approaching y equals 0. All right, last one I'm going to do is number 11. This is saying what's happening or what's the limit as x is approaching 0 from the left. So as we follow this and we approach 0 from the left, where my y value is approaching 0. What's the limit as x is approaching 0 from the right? Well, the y value is approaching that 0 right there, so 0. So the limit as x is approaching 0 in general would just be 0. What is the function evaluated when x is equal to 0? Well, it's going to be 0 as well. All right, then we're going to look to see what is the limit as x is approaching -infinity. So as the x's are going this way, well, they're bouncing, they're oscillating, they're going up and down. You don't know, is it going up here to this y value or down here to this y value? So we would say this does not exist. And that's because of the oscillating. And then as x is going to positive infinity, again, you don't know, is it going to that y value or to that y value? So we would say does not exist. All right, so that should be all. If you have any questions, please feel free to email your teacher or come to one of our Zoom sessions. Thanks.